Next up, we'll have Dr. Hailin Zhang talking about soil acidity in wheat cultivars. Turn it over to you, Hailin.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, thank you, Josh. I'd like to change direction a little bit. Instead of talking about the high pH soil, I'm going to talk about low pH soil. You know, soil pH is like our body temperature. If it's too high, we have a problem. If it's too low, we have probably a more serious problem. So this is what pH does to our crop production. This is why I like to revisit this old topic, focus on wheat. The reason I want to revisit this topic is because we still have lots of acid soil in the state. The overall percentage of soil with a pH less than 5.5 is about 1/4 of all the samples. But in the wheat region, this percentage is much higher. It could be like 30%. In some counties, this can be as high as 40%, 38, 39%. Like this is pH distribution in the state. You know, in Western Oklahoma, we have lots of calcareous soil there. However, even your medium or average pH is high up there. You can find some spots with low pH. It could be a problem. Most of our production-induced low acidity soils are in the north central region, like K County, Grant County, even Garfield, those areas. In East Oklahoma, they're naturally low in pH because the intensive weathering and higher rainfall event. So we need to pay more attention to this intensively managed wheat region. When you grow wheat, you always apply fertilizer, especially the fertilizer contains ammonium, like urea. When it hydrolyzes, release ammonia. For a long time, some of this ammonia will be nitrified into nitrate. During the process, proton or hydrogen is produced, which is a soil acidity. So over time, the acidity is increasing. The pH will drop below 5.5. Well, you know, soil clay is made of aluminum and silicates. So this pH actually will solubilize these aluminum compounds, make the aluminum reactive. They become soluble in water, basically. So the concentration of reactive aluminum, like aluminum 3+ and other hydroxyl forms in the soil, is increased. This aluminum can not only directly attack the roots, but also replace calcium, magnesium on the exchangeable sides, increase aluminum saturation percentage, okay? And then both of these will contribute to the aluminum toxicity issue. So this is why or how soil acidity can affect plant performance. Besides the pH affects nutrient availability like phosphorus, low pH, high pH like micronutrients such as iron and zinc. So in the state, we have done many research on soil acidity from Dr. Bob Westerman to many others. We consistently found the aluminum increases as pH decreases. especially when the pH drops below 5.5, you can see significant aluminum increases. Well, those aluminum will be absorbed on the cation exchange sites, increase aluminum saturation. So when this aluminum saturation reaches 10, 15%, it can become a serious problem, okay? So these are the relationships, how pH contributing to aluminum increase, then to affect the plants. Because this aluminum, they don't behave very well in the soil. They can directly attack the roots or precipitate phosphate or other nutrients. When you see aluminum in the soil, some of the calcium, magnesium probably already leached out or got lost. So this is how aluminum can affect not only below ground plant growth, but also above ground. So many research has been found when you have a low acid soil, the yields, grain yields will be decreased. The impact on biomass, the forage yields actually is more than grain yields. So I will show some examples in a little bit. This is a picture showing how pH can drastically change the below ground and above ground plant performance. Just a pH drop by half a unit. As you know, the pH is on a log scale. So pH 4 actually has 10 times as much acidity as pH 5. So here you have 5, 6 times as more acidity as in this one. Even 5, you see a decent growth, but by dropping another half unit, you see the typical aluminum toxicity symptom. It's very similar to phosphorus deficiency symptom. It's a purple color. And I noticed that Ruby Lee, that's one of the wheat variety we have in the state, is very susceptible to aluminum toxicity. Very easy to find a purple color on that variety. So the roots growing smaller, and then the above ground also smaller. That's how affecting the biomass or forage production, eventually also affecting the grain harvesting. So this is an example from Lahoma. As pH decreases, the grain yields just drops dramatically. Even you apply more nitrogen, okay? Well, actually, when you apply lots of nitrogen, this nitrogen, because it did not produce the plant, they left in the soil, they become nitrified, so added more acidity. That's why the pH is higher when you apply more nitrogen. That's a direct relationship. So when you have a low pH soil, the yields will be reduced, the nutrient use efficiency will be greatly reduced, okay? So that's something we have to keep in mind. When you have a low pH soil, make sure you correct that before you think about fertilization. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good use efficiency, okay? Now, for the forage yields, the relationship is even more dramatic. It's just a linear relationship. When you have low pH soil, the yields just keep going down. And to a point, the wheat just germinate and then just die because they cannot tolerate the aluminum or acidity in the soil. So if we grow wheat for dual purpose, the cattle would not have much to graze. So that's a very dire situation in the state because we have so much wheat growing for dual purpose in Oklahoma or maybe Kansas as well, okay? So traditionally, we think pH 5.5 is probably an optimum pH for wheat. Wheat is a pretty tough crop compared to some others. However, we found probably even a little bit higher than that, you still get a yield increase, like 5.7, okay? And the forage, actually, you can get continued increase in forage yields after 6, like 6.2. So this is another evidence to show the forage is more impacted by pH than grain. You know, why is that? Because some think maybe when the wheat grew bigger, the roots get into the subsoil, maybe just get around the low pH or acidity in the surface soil and compensate for the growth later in the growing stage. So that's probably one of the explanations why grain yields are less affected by pH than forage yields. So we all know there is a problem. I have been preaching this for 25 years since I came to Oklahoma. What do people do about this issue? Well, a lot of people just do nothing, continue growing wheat or other crops without taking any actions. But some start to see us to apply lime. Probably that's the most economical or practical solution to solve this issue. Others try to use a Band-Aid, banding phosphate fertilizer with seeds. It probably works temporarily to tie up some aluminum, but you have to do that every year. Plus, when you apply too much phosphorus, you waste some resource. Also, high phosphorus may contribute to some of the environment issues, like phosphorus getting into our water system and contributing to algal bloom and other issues. Okay, so there's another option to plant acid-tolerant wheat varieties. Is that working? So that's basically something I'm going to show you here. About 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago, we did some evaluation on those varieties available those days. Some of these numbers like OK101, OK102 probably already released in some other trade names. I did not check with Dr. Carver to find out what they are right now. But the idea is to show there's huge differences among wheat cultivars. You know, some tolerate acidity much better than others, like a Jacqueline Jaguar, they perform much better. Some probably don't do very well, like this one, AP502CL. It's just very obvious, right? But it doesn't matter what cultivars you have. When you lime them or raise the pH, they all do much better. So even so-called acid-tolerant varieties can benefit from increase in pH or liming. And you see the difference between these forages with or without lime. It's very significant. Actually here, showing some detailed information on these cultivars. For grain yields, Jacqueline, Jaga, OK101, they're ranked probably very high. That means more tolerate on soil acidity. Forage actually is in the same order, Jacqueline, Jaga, OK101, okay? So as I mentioned, when you raise the pH to a little bit higher, you still get increase for those cultivars. But the percentage of increase is not as good as those ones susceptible to acidity because they are so much impact by the acidity, so they increase more if you lime it. But still, using these tolerant varieties, you still can get a significant yield increase by lime. So what I try to say is that, don't just rely on the acid tolerance of varieties. Still think about lime, because you do get additional benefits by investing in a long-term management. So those are the studies we did 15, 16 years ago. There are now more new cultivars have been released. We conducted another study in the last several years. It's a very complicated study. We looked at some of the newer varieties like Ivar, Gallagher, Sprite, Spirit Rider, Long Rider, etc. Right? And we also looked at the varieties, whether they had a so-called aluminum tolerant gene. Okay, some of these had this gene, some do not. So we actually tested them into a range of pH from 4.5 to almost 7. This study was conducted in Stillwater and Chickasha. The Chickasha soil is very different from Stillwater, and that's something we'll probably discuss later in another time. So here are the varieties we tested, and also showing those varieties right here: Duster, OK, 14319, Long Rider, Jaga, had this aluminum tolerant gene. They were considered as tolerant. And there are some others do not have those genes, and they were considered moderately tolerant. And then Ivar didn't have this gene, and it was considered susceptible. And also we looked at the relationship between these cultivars with one of the parents, Duster. Okay, like those all kind of derived from this cultivar. Those is actually suggestions from Dr. Bert Carver and David Marburg. They were more knowledgeable on this topic than I have. So I'm going to only focus on how the pH of aluminum affected the yields. So let's take a look at what we found in Stillwater for the first year. First, we divided the pH into 3 categories, like low, when the pH less than 5, moderate, between 5 and 5.8, and then 5.8 is considered higher. So we divided those into 3 groups. As you know, as you can see here, the relative yields is much higher when the soil pH, let's see, did I got it wrong? This may be reversed, but I will double check. How could this be acidity moderate? Okay, so basically there are some differences here. However, between the cultivars with and without this aluminum tolerant gene, they did not see any differences. Okay, except that this actually not very different, not statistically different. So if we put them all together, the cultivars with this gene showed slightly increase in yields, but were not statistically significant. For the second year, it showed the same thing. I think those bottom are reversed, so I'm sorry for this mistake. But basically, when the pH was higher, the yields were also high. When you get moderate or low pH, the forage yields decreased. However, there was no significant difference between the cultivars with or without the aluminum tolerant gene. Okay, here is a box plot to further confirm that. We put all the data together. The medium is right here, and this one is for the cultivars without those genes, and they're pretty much the same. They were not very different, okay? So how do they, compare in terms of the tolerance? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got it right, but the low is for low acidity, actually high pH. High for high acidity, low pH, okay? So when the acidity is low, the yields are higher. When the acidity is high or pH is low, the yields are high. Within each category, you can see consistently, okay, 14319 and Jaga, Spirit Rider, they're consistently performed better than others. So they're more acid tolerant than other cultivars. And I asked Dr. Brett Cower if he has released this variety yet. He said he has not. This is probably in the next batch of cultivars he is going to release. So this gives us some idea about some of the current varieties, how they tolerate to soil acidity from this experiment. So just quickly to sum it up, when soil pH is low, there's going to be a problem because they affect crop yields, nutrient use efficiency. So as some people have been saying, when aluminum goes high, the yields go low. As far as the effect of aluminum tolerant gene is concerned, whether you have it or not, they are both affected by the aluminum saturation percentage or the actual amount of active aluminum. So there were no significant differences there. And just compare this gene effect. We found some time or some treatment increased the yields a little bit, but they're not consistent. Also, the increase is so small, it's not statistically significant. And recently I read another paper published in Agriculture Environment Letters. The researchers in Idaho find a very similar conclusion as ours. So here is the acid tolerance for some of the current varieties released or to be released. This OK 14319 is more tolerant than Duster, than Spirit Rider, and Galaga. And they performed better consistently across study years in Stillwater for the 2 years we tested. So I guess those just quickly highlight some of the information we recently obtained regarding to winter wheat cultivars on acid tolerance. So I think I probably saved some time. We can maybe address some questions. Yes, I do love soil, but except acid soils. So guys, just take care of the soil acidity if you can.
Yeah, and we definitely do have some time for questions for Hailin regarding soil acidity and the work they carried out. I know we have had quite a bit of a discussion, Hailin, about managing acidity on rented ground versus non-rented ground, and the P band versus the lime in the chat. That I am sure you have good opinions on regarding.
Yeah, I think the land ownership is one of the major hindrance on liming because it's a relative long investment. You apply it, the effects will last 5-6 years. So if your lease is only for 2 to 3 years, you may not want to, put all the money there. However, our study have been showing if you lime it, just the yield increase in the first year, like forage or grain increase, could pay for most of the lime cost. So you add them all together 2-3 years, actually you can come ahead. So if you have a reasonable length of leasing, like 2 to 3 years, it's worth to lime it instead of using bending phosphate and other strategies.
Well, one question that I have, Hailin, is talking about wheat and crops in general, but we'll focus on wheat. Or here we have a better one come in. We'll talk about mine. What are your thoughts on lime, pelletized lime?
Okay. Well, when we make a lime recommendation, we measure the pH and the buffer pH. The pH tells us whether we need lime or not. The buffer pH tells us how much lime we need to apply. So it doesn't matter what source you have to put so much calcium carbonate there to neutralize the acidity. So if you apply pelletized lime, you still need to apply a ton or two to neutralize acidity. You cannot just say, 100 pounds of pelletized lime is equivalent to 1 ton of egg lime. That's not true. Does it work? Yes. If you bend your pellets with the seeds, you neutralize small area, you can get by for 1 year, just like you bending phosphate. So if you pay a lot of money to buy pelletized lime, you might just think about if it's better just to apply egg lime in a large quantity. So I think when Ramila was here, we actually did field study. We demonstrated when you bend the pelletized lime, you only affect the pH in a small area, not on the whole soil profile. So the economics determines which option is better.
Well, thank you, Hailin, and